Hello and welcome to another episode of the MylesHighClub podcast. I am your host, Myles. This is episode 12 and Merry Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas Eve if you're watching this on the day it comes out. If you are crazy, loyal enough to be watching this on Christmas Day, Merry Christmas to you all. And if you're watching this after Christmas, I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas. Now, a lot has gone on since we last spoke, since I was last on camera. We've had a new tier added to our lockdown. They're talking about viruses mutating. I really want to get into it, but I said to myself, this is the Christmas special, so I'm going to keep everything light-hearted and Christmas focused. Although I could argue this whole tier 4 thing is Christmas fest. It's like a Christmas special from Corona. Like just when you thought we had just a little bit of peace, a little bit of happiness to enjoy in December, at the end of the year, this happens. But no, like I said, we are not getting dragged up into that. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone is feeling the Christmas spirit wherever you are, whether you're by yourself, whether you're trapped in a uni, whether you're with friends, whether it's just your household, or whether you are one of the lucky people that can spend it with the wider family like you would do every other Christmas. I hope everyone is in good spirits. Hold on, guys. I should have done the math beforehand, but we are like, 7 days, 8 days? We are less than 10 days away from 2021, so cross your fingers, it's not long now. I say that. No, next week when we do a wrap-up of 2020 and we predict what we can see for the future of 2021, we will get into all of this, I promise. Once again, I am moving around quite a lot and rubbing my hands together because I am recording this early morning just to make sure I can get everything done on time. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it feels like I'm a dragon. I can just see my breath coming up every single time I talk. So you know what that is. For the podcast listeners, I am showing off another one of my little aluminium bottles. This time, it's not hot chocolate. Because it's the morning, it's my herbal tea. Nothing gets the system going like some honey, ginger, and lemon herbal tea. Oh. So yeah, Christmas special. I've already covered off a lot of Christmas topics running up to Christmas, which I probably should have saved for this episode. So I thought to myself, what can I even talk about when it comes to Christmas? And I thought to myself, well, Myles, this is literally how I talk to myself in my head as well. I was like, well, Myles, you want to talk about Christmas? Why not talk about the origins of Christmas and how Christmas started? So before I start reading from stuff, do people know the origin of Christmas? I don't think I did. I couldn't tell you that I knew the origin. I knew it wasn't religious to start with. Like, I know when Christmas first started, it had nothing to do with Christianity. It had nothing to do with Jesus. I know it had something to do with the winter solace, only because a few episodes ago I did research on advent calendars. That's what the advent calendars lined up to. But we all know Christmas, religion. It is. Let's just face it. We're in England, and if you were to watch the news and believe all the race wars that we have going, this is not a Muslim country. It's a Christian country. Whether or not you agree or disagree with that, that's up to you guys. But I do believe England would be classed as a Christian country. So here we go. How did Christmas start? So apparently, I'm going off something called history.com. It sounded official and the website looked official. So I thought to myself, I'm not going to spend too much time diving around every single website trying to find all the bits of information. So I'm just going to try and read some of the best bits that I can. Centuries, hundreds of years before the man they called Jesus arrived, early Europeans celebrated light and birth in the darkest days of winter. So many people rejoiced during the winter solace when the worst of the winter was behind them and they could look forward to longer days and extended hours of sunlight. To me, that sounds like spring. Like, things may have changed from way back then, but that sounds more like a spring thing to do. Like, once December gets here, I don't start thinking to myself, oh, it's going to start getting lighter now. No, I'm like, we've still got January and February to come, so we've still got some of the coldest weather to come. If we're going to get any snow, that's when the snow is going to come. I don't think I've seen snow in 2-3 years, maybe. Again, we are the Midlands. Like, I know, depending on who you are or where you are when you're watching this, I know for a that we had snow a few weeks ago. Up north, I saw people in Scotland had a few inches, people up north in Manchester, and all those places had a few inches. Give me 2 secs. I feel like I've just paused recording, and if I haven't, then we can keep going. I haven't. It sounded like I paused the recording, but it's just me being silly. So yeah. So far, it was all about celebrating the worst of the winter being behind you, and you can now look forward to longer days and extended hours of sunlight, which I'm here. I'm someone that would agree with that. I hate that it gets dark early. I hate that it's dark when as soon as you wake up, it's just dark till like 8 o'clock. Give me longer days, more sunlight. Treat me like I was a child. Remember when you was a kid and your mum was like, come home when the street lights come on, or before the street lights come on. So in the summer, you could be out till about 9, 10 o'clock, but in the winter, you had to be back in your house for like 4. Nope. So here we go. Let's start having a look at them. So in Scandinavia, the Norse celebrated Yule from December 21st through to January. So in recognition of the return of the sun, fathers and sons would bring home large logs which they would set on fire. People would then feast until the log burned out, which could take up to 12 days. That is a big log to burn. And then the Norse believed that each spark from the fire represented a new calf or pig that was going to be born. So I'm assuming that has everything to do with being farmers. Yeah, I can imagine being a farmer, the winter, especially back then. I feel like everyone was a farmer, or everyone relied on farmers back then. So, being the winter, crops aren't growing, animals aren't getting as fed as well. Winter is probably a pretty crappy time. It says here the end of December was the perfect time for celebration in most areas. At that time of year, most cattle was slaughtered, so they would not have to be fed during the winter. Smart. And it was the only time of year when they had a supply of fresh meat. So what, did they just like save up all the animals for the winter and then just start cutting things up? Because they didn't have fridges back then, which is why apparently food used to be really salty, because the only way you can preserve fresh meat, if you don't have something cold to put it in like a freezer, is to put salt on it. Don't ask me how long salt preserves something for, especially compared to a freezer. I just know if you want to preserve meat, cover it in salt. And then it was the only time of year when they had a fresh supply of meat. In addition, most wine and beer made during the year was finely fermented and ready for drinking. There's all my drinkers out there. Imagine that. You start making your own, you start making your own beer, wine in January, and you've got to wait for it to ferment. So you're waiting all the way till the end of the year when the worst of the winter is behind you. You've got some fresh meat, you've got a nice steak, some steak and red wine. There we go. In Germany, people honoured the pagan god Odin during the midwinter holiday. I feel like this winter celeste was a big thing in Europe from the look of it. This is still not Christmas. It's the origins of Christmas, but it's not technically Christmas yet. Germans feared Odin as they believed he made nocturnal flights through the sky to observe people and decide who would prosper and who would perish. Because of his presence, many people chose to stay inside. How very fitting. How very fitting indeed. Then again, I don't know nowadays if people are choosing to stay inside, more being forced to stay inside. So here's something else that ties in with it all. Saturnalia. I think that's how you pronounce it. Saturn A and then L-I-A. So Saturnalia, that's what I'm going for. So in Rome, where winters weren't as harsh as they were further north, Saturnalia is a holiday in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture, which was celebrated beginning in the week leading up to the winter solstice and continuing for a 4-month. Saturnalia was a hedonistic time, whatever that means, when food and drink were plentiful and the normal Roman social order was turned upside down, which, I don't know if this sounds cool or not, but listen to this. So for a month, enslaved people would become masters, peasants were in command of the city, and businesses and schools were closed so that everybody could join in the fun. How in that month did enslaved people who become masters not enslave the old masters and take over Rome? Like, this should have happened, I'm going to say twice maybe. It should have happened twice maybe. Because I'm saying the first time it happens, they're like, I don't really know what's going on, let's just see what happens. And you're like, oh shit, we were actually in charge for a month. Boom, next year, we're killing everyone that's mistreated us. I want everyone to write down a list, check it twice, because we're trying to see who's been naughty and who has been nice. I may have remixed a few words in that there, but you all get the drift where I'm going with that. I would have risen up, like first day of the month, master's head clean off his shoulders. I am the master, who's going to arrest me? Throw all of these peasants in jail. Oh yeah, you don't want me to be a slave and then become a master the very next day for a whole month. I am making your life a misery. But let's carry on. Around the time of winter solace, Romans observed Juvenalia, a feast honoring the children of Rome. In addition, members of the upper class often celebrated the birthday of Mithra, the god of the unconquerable sun, on December 25th. It was believed that Mithra, an infant god, was born of a rock. For some Romans, Mithra's birthday was the most sacred day of the year. So her birthday was on the 25th. So you've got Romans honoring children as well as celebrating the birthday of this god on the 25th. You've got winter solace coming up. So this is where we now get dawn onto Christmas. So it literally says here, is Christmas really the day Jesus was born? A lot of you probably sat there thinking, everyone knows Jesus was born on the 25th. There are two very strong arguments for Jesus being born in the spring or the summertime. Spring around April, March, summertime around August. Do your own research. We're not diving into that now. I'll tell you, I keep trying to avoid talking about religion, and every episode they worm their way into my conversations. But here we go. In the early years of Christianity, Easter was the main holiday. The birth of Jesus was not celebrated. Good to know. In the 4th century, church officials decided to institute the birth of Jesus as a holiday. So there you go. In the 4th century, some church officials were just like, you know what? Let's make Jesus' birthday a holiday, like the Queen. Well, in England anyway. This is a worldwide, it seems like a worldwide celebration. How is Christmas celebrated in countries that aren't predominantly Christian? I feel like that was the safest way to ask that question. If anyone knows, please let me know. But if you know what I'm getting at here. But the countries that aren't predominantly Christian, whether it's Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, even though I'm sure Jewish people celebrate Christmas, I'm sure they do. They have Hanukkah. Do Jewish people celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas, or is like Hanukkah their Christmas? Someone please let me know. I don't have any Jewish friends that I'm aware of to know these kind of things. But let's carry on. Unfortunately, the Bible does not mention the date for his birth, and it's got in brackets here, as a fact, Puritans later pointed out, in order to deny the legitimacy of the celebration, the fact that the Bible, the book of God, doesn't actually tell you when his son was born. And then it also goes on to say, although some evidence suggests that his birth may have occurred in the spring, because why would shepherds be herding in the middle of winter? And if you know about the story of Jesus and the shepherds and the herding, they would have been doing that in the spring/summertime, not the winter, which is when he was born. There you go. And Pope Julius I, in fact, is the person who chose the 25th of December. Doesn't say why, it just says that. It is commonly believed that the church chose this day in an effort to adopt and absorb the traditions of the pagan Saturnalia festival. So it does tell you why in the very next sentence. So the Pope basically chose the 25th, and he was like, this is because it will be able to adapt and absorb with traditions that people are already celebrating. So another way to further push their agenda on everyone else by mixing their holiday with an already well-known, well-celebrated holiday. So first, called the Feast of Nativity, the custom spread to Egypt by 432 AD, I'm guessing, because it wouldn't be before Christ. We're talking about when he was born. And then to England by the end of the 6th century. So by holding Christmas at the same time as traditional winter solace festivals, church leaders increased the chances that Christmas would be popularly embraced, but gave up the ability to dictate how it was celebrated. So there you go. They were literally like, winter solace is such a big thing. We want people to embrace Christmas. Let's piggyback. Capitalism has been around forever, guys. But let's piggyback on the back of this already popular celebration. But what we won't do is tell people how to celebrate Christmas. We'll let them celebrate it in their own way as long as they are celebrating. That's how it works, guys. We wouldn't even be celebrating Christmas if it weren't for the Christians. We would be slaughtering animals and drinking homemade wine and beer, celebrating that the long days will be returning. Long sunny days will be returning. Another one they say is Christmas. Oh, here you go. So each year, a beggar or a student would be crowned Lord of Misrule, and eager celebrations played the part of his subjects. The poor would go to the houses of the rich and demand their best food and drink. If the owners failed to comply, their visitors would most likely terrorize them with mischief. Jesus. Christmas became the time of the year when the upper classes could repay their real or imagined debt to society by entertaining the less fortunate. What the fuck happened to that? What happened to that? When was the last time you saw the upper classes repaying their debts to people, whether it's financially, whether it's through monetary reasons, whether it's through food, whether it's through hospitality? There's charities that do it, and even then I don't trust charities. That's again another conversation for another day. But I am someone who is just, I am not a fan of charities. Not all. I'm not a fan of certain charities or the aspect of charities. I like the idea of a charity, but in practice, I feel like more of them are just not the best things. So there we go. There is the origin of Christmas, a popular winter festival celebrating we're going to get more sun, was hijacked by the church in order to push their agenda of Christianity and Jesus onto people. Now, where they got the whole, let's just say Jesus was born on the 25th idea from is beyond me. This article doesn't dive into it, maybe for good reasons. Maybe it's telling me I shouldn't be trying to dive into those things as well, but no. There you go, guys. There is the origin of Christmas. What else do we like to talk about around Christmas? Oh, another fun thing around Christmas. I'm sure most people have heard of this now. So Oliver Cromwell. If you don't know who Oliver Cromwell is, he was a politician. He was a Puritan politician back in the 1600s. Yeah. Main reason I'm talking about him is to discuss the whole, did Oliver Cromwell ban Christmas? I think the answer is no. As in, he didn't ban Christmas. Was Christmas banned? Yes. Was it Oliver Cromwell? No. So, let's dive into this. Now, I'm never going to read it all because it's a very simple story of why they banned Christmas. You had Christianity, which again I've already mentioned to you, has about 15 different subcategories of Christians and Catholics and whoever and Protestants and I don't know. I'm trying not to offend anyone really just watching this podcast. So I'm just saying there are a lot of sub-tiers when it comes to this religion, even though there's only one God. But I'll leave it there. So how it worked is England was at war back in Civil War, not 1642. So I can see it was a civil war between 1642. I'm trying to find the names of these people. It was the Puritans. That's one of them. That was the Oliver Cromwell guys. He was a Puritan. I think they were going against Catholics or Christians. They were going against somebody. There was a civil war broke out. Now, Christmas was banned depending on what side of the country you fell on. Not necessarily what side you picked. I'm just assuming what area you lived in and who it was ruled by. If it was ruled by the Puritans or the Royals, who I think were Christians. If you were ruled by the Royals, everything to a degree was fine. Christmas was still celebrated. It was encouraged. Everything was good. However, if you were in an area ruled by the Puritans, they actually banned Christmas. So they banned Christmas as hold on, let me get the correct term up here. Because they didn't ban the concept or the idea of Christmas. They basically banned Christmas and said Christmas will no longer be a holiday or a day of feast or a day to celebrate. There we go. So on June 1647, Parliament, so the Puritan Parliament, passed an ordinance that abolished an ordinance, not an audience like watches TV. It starts with an O and an R. An ordinance that abolished Christmas Day as a feast day and a holiday. So they were like, boom. So Cromwell supported this movement, but it wasn't actually him that put forward the laws and the subsequent laws of imposing penalties for those who continued to enjoy Christmas. So you want to know how mad it is? Because I was doing some research on this before. If you were seen to be enjoying Christmas, you could face a fine of up to 5 shillings. I don't know what 5 shillings would be worth in today's money. So I'm just going to type in 5 shillings in today's money would be, oh really? 5p. 5 shillings would be 25p. I mean, if just imagine if Boris said you can't go around other people's houses, otherwise you're going to get a fine of 25p. I'll be skipping on the way to my mum's house, counting the pennies as I went along. No, so I'm assuming back then 5 shillings was a lot, and if it wasn't a lot, it was definitely an inconvenience. So you got caught with shillings. They also instructed the army, so the army would walk the streets and patrol the streets, arresting anybody who looked like they were cooking food or preparing food for Christmas Day. I don't know how they would differentiate me cooking a normal meal to me cooking a Christmas Day meal. Maybe it's what I'm cooking, maybe it's the amount of food I'm cooking, who knows, but armies were put on the streets and soldiers were walking up and down, arresting anybody who was seen to be eating or preparing food. So I don't know what else to say. I do not know what else to say. Obviously, it was all over. It all got eventually overturned when someone came into power, and here we go. But here you go. So why had the Parliament decided to wage war on Christmas? The attack on the feast had deep roots long before the Civil War began. Puritans, so basically they didn't like the way people celebrated. So because people were getting rowdy, so people were getting drunk, they would get rowdy. We've already mentioned earlier that they were causing mischief. The Puritans didn't like it, and they were calling, I think they either called Christmas or they called Christmas Day celebrations the greatest sin of God. I feel like that's what the quote was. I can go back and find it. But the sin was called, it was the greatest sin of God. And what they were saying is, instead of just getting rid of Christmas as a whole day completely, Christmas Day should be spent as a whole, complete, sober day, appreciating and worshipping the Father God Almighty. So that's what they wanted. They wanted you no drinking, no getting drunk, no turning up, no partying, no having fun. We want you to spend the whole day sober, just giving thanks to God and praising Him and saying your prayers and whatever else you have to do to please the man in the sky or the extraterrestrial plane, wherever you feel like God resides. You pray there. And that was why Christmas, and that's how Christmas got banned, which funny story, anyone that follows me on Instagram, on my personal Instagram, probably saw this. I went to the barbers. Shout out Joe, my barber. Fresh trim. Sorry if I'm wearing a hat, Joe, but it's freezing cold in my garage, so these things have to be done, but just know I appreciate this fresh trim. So yeah, I remember being in the barbers, and my barber cutting my hair, and he stopped to check something, and he saw something somewhere, and it was like Christmas Day's moved. And I was like, what do you mean Christmas Day's moved? And then he showed me, and he's like, I didn't believe it. So I literally went on the UK government's website, clicked on UK holidays, and this year it said Christmas Day was the 27th of December, which was a Monday. Now, depending on what you do for a job, you're probably already thinking, I know why this is Myles. It's common knowledge. It wasn't common knowledge to me. And only I'd say out of about 20 people that replied to my story, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 knew what the real reason was. Everyone else was like, oh my God, they can't do that. But I generally thought it had something to do with what's going on this year, because this was after the first lockdown, but before we went into our second lockdown. But literally, I was like, lockdowns happen. I was like, maybe they're going to put us back into a lockdown, or maybe they're moving Christmas so that it comes when we're outside of lockdown. Is it going to be a 1-year thing? Is it always going to happen? I was so confused. I thought Christmas had been moved. Turns out Christmas Day is still celebrated on the 25th of December in the UK. It was just the bank holiday. It was just the bank holiday of Christmas. So because if Christmas falls on a Saturday or Sunday, it doesn't get classed as a bank holiday, because bank holidays can't be on a weekend. So that substitute bank holiday then gets pushed to the next available weekday, meaning you still get your day off for Christmas if it falls on a weekend, i.e. Monday. So there we go. But I generally thought this year they were moving Christmas, and I was going to say, would you put it past the government to move Christmas? And at first I was like, no, I wouldn't. But now, the way that I saw how they basically let us come out of lockdown, and we're like, you're going into tiers. Oh, we're going to give everyone relaxed things up until Christmas. And then all of a sudden, mutations happened. Some areas have been thrown into a tier. That means they can't spend it with family. I don't know if you've been watching the news, but they did say on the news from midnight of Christmas Day. So midnight Christmas Day, a lot more places are going to be up and thrown directly into tier 4 or a new tier up from midnight. So if you are going around family's house, make sure you are back home by 11:59. Otherwise, the Cinderella effect's going to happen and your turkey leg's going to turn into a ball of Corona and just jump into your nose or down the back of your throat as well. So there you go, guys. That was a bit of origins of Christmas, the history of Christmas. Another one that I also wanted to... I've lost it. I did have one that was on about the origins of Santa Claus as well. Now, there are two sort of origins, or there are two things that make up the Santa Claus we know today. So there's the original story of Saint Nicholas, who I believe back in one of those really old dates, like the 1700s or the 1600s or the 1300s, something like that. There was a monk, I want to call him a monk or a priest, something like that, in Germany called Saint Nicholas, who used to share his wealth and all of his time giving back to the unfortunate. And he would also, I think he would either travel to an island or he would travel somewhere where he would help sick and in need children. That's the origins of Saint Nicholas. So by all means, still sounds as an amazing man as the Santa Claus we all know today, just a little bit less magical. So then what happened in Germany is they used to celebrate the memory of Saint Nicholas, this guy that was going around and just blessing children and giving children gifts and presents and making them feel better. So the Germans used to celebrate him and celebrate that. That then must have turned into like a folklore or a myth, and it somehow got spread across the world. The image of Santa, however, we didn't get the original images of Santa were, one, apparently scary, and two, he was more elf looking than he was jolly. And by jolly they mean fat, but everywhere I was reading I feel like they were trying to be PC, so they didn't want to say fat and they kept using jolly. But basically Santa wasn't fat, he was a slim elf. I also never knew Santa was an elf. Like a lot of places I'm reading refer to Santa as an elf, which makes sense because he has little elves helping him. He's like the grand... No, I'm not going to call him the grand elf because I'm sure that's what the leader of the KKK calls himself, grand wizard. He's like the master elf. He's the splinter of the elves, put it that way. So he's the leader, El Capitan, the boss man. It's Coca-Cola. Someone reached out to Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola basically paid an illustrator to come up with a design for Santa Claus for their advertisements. And that's how we get St. Nicholas with the red. It makes sense, red and white and Coca-Cola. When you think about Coca-Cola, the colour you think of is red. And you look at Santa and then look at the Coca-Cola logo, it all makes sense. But yeah, it was literally a picture of Santa drinking the Coca-Cola on a truck, I think, or something, in the red hat and the red suit with the white fluff. So our image of Santa comes from Coca-Cola, the company that used to put real Coke in their drinks and sell it. We have been a trash race for such a long time. It's unreal. We are still on Christmas, so because it is Christmas, I did try and do research on some Christmas facts as well. Now, whether or not you think these Christmas facts are interesting or not is up to you. Here's one. You can thank Prince Albert for your Christmas tree. So apparently, Prince Albert of Germany, who was married to, this is where it all comes from. Prince Albert of Germany married the Queen Victoria of England, which is how our monarchy, everyone refers to them as German. He actually introduced a tree to his wife for Christmas. There was a painting, if I can find the painting, I'll whack it up here. But there was a painting that got put into the Illustrated London News in 1848 of them two and the children in front of this Christmas tree. And it said from there that that idea went viral, or whatever you would have called it back then. But it went viral, and that is how the idea of a Christmas tree took off worldwide, which I thought that was good. What else have we got? There we go. This is what I was talking about earlier. Coca-Cola played a part in Santa's image. So before Coca-Cola got onto it, Santa used to look a lot less fat. He even looked spooky. It wasn't until 1931 when the beverage company hired an illustrator named Haddon Sudblom for magazine ads, and we got the jolly old elf now. There you go, so jolly old elf. So apparently Santa is an elf. Hanging stockings was an accident. There you go. So hanging stockings was an accident. So apparently, according to legend, We hang stockings from the chimney thanks to a poor man who didn't have enough money for his 3 daughters' dowries. Don't know what a dowry is. So generous old Saint Nick, remember that's his trademark, dropped a bag of gold down the chimney one night, and when the girls had hung their stockings to dry, that's where the gold ended up. Therefore, that's how the tradition started. So the dad didn't have enough money to fill up whatever he was trying to fill up. These girls went somewhere, feet got wet, hung up their stockings by the fireplace, as you would do to dry them back then. Saint Nick, someone dropped gold down the chimney, landed in their stockings, and then they must have just started thinking, oh, I'm going to keep putting stockings up and keep getting stuff in my stockings. And they must have told people, and then it spread. And that's why we now have stockings. I don't personally use stockings. I much prefer just whacking things under the Christmas tree and just leaving them there. That's another one. What kind of person are you? I think it depends if you're a parent. But if you're a parent, or if you grew up in a house with kids, or if you can remember your childhood, how was Christmas for you? I remember presents being put under the Christmas tree leading up to Christmas, because I used to specifically run downstairs, look under the Christmas tree for any new presents, and any new boxes I saw, I would look at the tags, and if they were mine, I would always rearrange my presents so that on Christmas Day, all of my presents were together, so I never had to run off. Or were you part of those families that went above and beyond and just had 1,000,001 hiding places, and you didn't see one present, and then Christmas Eve, when you've gone to bed, your parents get all the presents down, put them by the tree, so when you wake up Christmas Day and go downstairs, it's like, boom, it's there. You're like, oh my gosh, all my presents are there. I imagine that's how you would react as a kid. But there you go. Oh, this one got me, because I never knew where he came from. Rudolph was a marketing ploy. And of course he was. Marketing, capitalism. It's been around for so fucking long, and we just act like it's something new. Yes, so Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer first appeared in 1939 when the Montgomery Ward department store asked one of its copywriters to create a Christmas story the store could give away as a promotional gimmick. So the store had been giving away coloring books for years and decided to make its own to save money, and that's how we got Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, ladies and gentlemen. Another fun fact about Rudolph, if anyone remembers the Rudolph the Reindeer cartoon series that came out, people, including the church and Christians, tried to get that banned because apparently they didn't like the way it was depicted of Santa and the other reindeers bullying Rudolph. Even though in the song, it literally talks about how the other reindeers bullied Rudolph, and the only reason everyone became friends with him is because they found a use for him. That's what they never talk about in Reindeer. They don't realise what they were doing is bad. They don't realise that he is one of them. They bullied him and took the mick out of him because he looked different. And then when they found out that they actually had a use for the way he looks, they were like, oh, you can ride up front and lead my sleigh so you can light the way, Rudolph. No one ever said sorry. They didn't welcome him in. They probably still talk shit about him behind his back. He flies up there by himself. There's no one next to him. Poor Rudolph. Rudolph lives a very, very, very hard life. I'm trying to think if there's any more. I would have talked about celebrating Christmas used to be illegal. Here's a fun one, actually. Santa has his own Canadian postal code. So every year, so cementing their reputation as one of the nicest countries around the world, some big-hearted Canadian post office workers started writing back to kids that were writing to them. As the program took off, they set up a special postal code for Santa as part of a Santa letter writing initiative. So basically what they would do is they set up a fake postal code so all of the kids in Canada could send their letters to Santa, and they would have some dedicated workers who would not only read those letters, but would actually write back to either all or most of those kids as well. Which, every time you think humanity's shit, there are things like this that pop up that make you just say, oh, there is hope for us. Maybe that's why the aliens haven't invented, because there is still hope for us yet. And I've got one last one that I saw that I need to try and find, because when I saw this, I thought it was such a good thing. So I'm going to read a few of them to you, and when I get to the other one, I will let you know. So America have copied Canada. So all letters addressed to Santa in the United States go to Santa Claus, Indiana Post Office. A small group of people actually read and write the reply to thousands of letters. So just like their friends above, the Americans have actually got something good like that as well. I just found this one funny. There is a village in Peru where people settle their previous year's grudges by fist fighting. They then start the new year off on a clean slate. Listen, if I get knocked out on New Year's Eve, I'm not starting a clean slate New Year's Day. You best believe we are beefing for a whole nother year until I get my knockout back or I start winning the comeuppance. But I'm petty. Don't follow me, guys. Telling ghost stories, telling scary ghost stories is an old Christmas Eve tradition that has died out in the past centuries. Never knew that. Maybe Nightmare Before Christmas is more of a Christmas film than we thought. Some zoos, doesn't say where, it just says some zoos accept donated Christmas trees as food for their animals. I guess. Why not? What else have we got? I don't know if this is true or not, but it's on here, so I'm going to read it. A large part of Sweden's population watches Donald Duck cartoons every Christmas Eve since 1960. No idea what that has to do with Christmas, Donald Duck and Christmas. I don't see the connection there. But also, I'm a fan, as I mentioned before, of DuckTales. So anything that involves Donald Duck, Scrooge McDuck, Huey, Louie, and I always forget the third one. Huey, Louie, and whatever he's called. Him. This was a cool one. I'm sure we've all... No, we haven't. Not this one, the next one. So, during Christmas of 2010, the Colombian government covered jungle trees with lights. When FRAC guerrillas, also known as terrorists, walked by, the trees lit up with banners asking them to lay their arms down. Apparently, 331 guerrillas re-entered society and the campaign won an award for strategic marketing excellence. What a great story that is. Personally, you should have just put landmines in the jungle, but then again, that probably would have took out the animals. But yeah, they just covered the trees with lights, and when the terrorists were walking through there, I'm assuming to hunt gorillas or whatever they were doing in the jungle, they would see the Christmas tree lights, and it warmed the hearts of 331 of them. Their hearts grew 3 times bigger. Let me know in the comments if you know what that is from. This one, again, this is why I got confused earlier about if Jewish people celebrate Christmas, because this just says nearly all of the most popular Christmas songs, including Winter Wonderland, The Christmas Song, and White Christmas, were written by Jewish people. I don't know what you can do with that information, but take it. This is a popular one that I'm sure everyone knows. During the Christmas of 1914, which was World War I, a truce was held between Germany and the UK. They decorated their shelters, exchanged gifts across no man's land, and played a game of football between themselves, which should let you know. I'm not going to harp on, and I do plan at some point in getting my boy Rory on this podcast, who's a Marine, and we can talk all things Army. Hopefully I don't get him fired, but we'll talk all things Army on that podcast. But surely, if you can put down your weapons and play football with someone and exchange gifts, it should let you know that whatever it is you're fighting about is not worth it. Although, in World War One, I'm sure, wasn't that the Nazis? Was Nazis World War One or World War Two? I am so bad with history. Let's just say Nazis were World War One, even though I don't know why they would have then had a second World War. But yeah, I was just about to say what you're fighting over doesn't mean anything. But no, half of these people were following Hitler. So I don't think they should have had a football match. They should have put a landmine in the ball, said to the Germans, you guys can have kickoff. As soon as they passed it back to the defence, take out the whole back four, some of the midfield, maybe the goalkeeper, spring the trap on them, clean them all out. Apologies to anybody that's of German descent. That my story means you wouldn't be here today. But, I mean, you follow who you follow. You follow who you follow. Moving on. In 1918, and for the past 40 years, the Canadian province of Nova Scotia sent the city of Boston a giant Christmas tree as a thank you for their support after the 1917 Halifax explosion. No idea what that is. Let's just assume it was an explosion. This is a nice warm-hearted one. In 1867, a Boston industrialist heard Charles Dickens read A Christmas Carol and was so moved he closed his factory on Christmas Day and gave every one of his employees a turkey. A real life Scrooge. That is just a lovely, lovely, lovely story there. How can you not be happy with that? Here's another one, Nazis again. The Nazi party tried to turn Christmas into a non-religious holiday, celebrating the coming of Hitler, with St. Nicholas replaced by Odin, the solaced man, and a swastika at the top of the Christmas tree. They really went for world domination, and if you do some research into Nazis, it sounds bad saying it, but Hitler did a pretty good job. Like, there are neo-Nazis all over the world, in America and England and everywhere, that still support this Nazi thing, still wear swastikas. Half of these Nazis that were doing stuff escaped to other parts of Europe, to Argentina, to South Africa, to Africa, and they're still probably alive today, and they're just reaping the benefits of all the bastard shit that they did, which is horrible. There you go. Here's another one, though, to hit back at the Nazis. The US playing card company, Bicycle, had manufactured a playing card in World War II which revealed an escape route for prisoners of war when soaked. These Christmas presents were for all prisoners of war in Germany, and the Nazis were none the wiser, which got me thinking, does that mean when soldiers were captured by the Nazis? First of all, back then, if someone got captured, how do you know they got captured? How do you know where they went? And how were you just sending presents to people saying, oh, here you go, Mr. Nazi, can you just give this to George? I think he's in cell block B. Yeah, just give him that. Don't worry about when he starts pouring water all over it, or what these weird sketchings are. And escape route from what? How do the English have an escape route if they've been captured by the Nazis? You know when some things sound good and you're really amazed, but they raise more questions than the answer that they gave in the first place, and you're just like, Here is one that really stumped me. Don't know how true it is. Might do some research on it later on in life. Let me pull my hands over because it's freezing cold. I need to buy a radiator because at the minute my heater is loud. So if I flick my heater on to warm myself up, all you lot are going to hear is a humming in the background. And we do not want that. So here we go. An artificial Christmas tree would have to be reused for more than 20 years to be greener than buying a fresh cut tree annually. So all you environmentalists out there, it's actually more environmentally friendly to buy a fresh cut tree every single year than it is to buy one of those plastic, PVC, whatever they're made out of trees, and use that for 19 years. Which my mum may actually have done that. I don't know how old the Christmas trees that my mum's got, but I would easily say the Christmas tree at my mum's it's got to be over 10 years. It's so small, but it's got to be over 10 years. It has to be over 10 years. I would say at least 15, 20 years. She'll deny it, but it's at least 15, 20 years. Because there are some things in my house that were there since I was born or before I was born, like pictures and frames and mirror, or a clock. There's a clock that's definitely been in that house for 17 years. But anyway, I digress. We frequently abbreviate Christmas as Xmas because of an ancient tradition. X is the Greek letter chi, which is an abbreviation of the word Christ in Greek. So there you go. That's why we call it Xmas. I did read something about that, about what it was actually called and how you spell it, but yeah, no. In Japan, people traditionally eat KFC for Christmas dinner thanks to a successful marketing campaign 40 years ago. KFC is so popular that customers must place their Christmas orders 2 months in advance. Right, I need to know, is that true? Anyone Japanese watching this, anyone that has any Japanese friends, please contact them, ask them this, and then come back to me and let me know how true that is, because just wow. I thought KFC was the backup. I don't even know if KFC's open on Christmas Day, but I feel like it's a backup in case like someone fucks up the Christmas dinner and everything gets burnt and you're like, what are we gonna do? You just go to your local KFC and get some chicken. Here we go. The people of Oslo, Norway donate the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree every year in gratitude to the people of London for their assistance during World War II. You're welcome, Norway, even though I wasn't part of that. And number one, which shouldn't surprise anyone in the slightest at all, Christmas purchases account for 1/6 of all retail sales in America annually. 1/6. So for one day of the year, all the presents people are buying for that accumulate to 1/6 of all retail sales throughout the whole year. The whole year, people spend money. I'd love to know where Valentine's Day comes. I know people spend a lot of money for that. Thanksgiving, you'd think, how is that? Because you have Thanksgiving in America just before Christmas. So how do they have the ability? That is crazy. That is really crazy. Well, guys, I actually don't know, so I need to get a timer so I can see how long I've been talking for. Hopefully, I've been talking for about 45 minutes now or so. But that has been our Christmas special. So hopefully you all know the origins of Christmas. What that does for your life or how it changes it, I do not know. But feel free to let me know how this has changed your life. We will see you. I'm back next week. I was going to take this week off, but then I remembered last week I never told anyone I was going to take this week off. Also, I've just got started. Like a lot of the podcasts and things that I've been watching are either taking like a week or 2 weeks off, or they've pre-recorded some shows that they're going to put out there for people. But these are people that are getting thousands and thousands of views. I get an average of like 20. I appreciate you 20 and my listeners. That was just viewers. I appreciate all the handful of people that listen, and I appreciate all of you guys that watch. However, we have just got started. This is episode 12. I keep screaming that consistency is key, so I am going to continue to be consistent. So I'm here this week. It might be a shorter episode. I'm not too sure. I also feel like when I tapped my buds that I might have paused the video and then tapped them again and paused and resumed recording the video. So this may be a very interesting podcast where there's like a gap at some point earlier on in the podcast where nothing happens, or nothing happened, everything's gone as smoothly, and you're watching this bit now thinking, Myles, are you okay? I'm perfectly fine. But we will be back next week. Next week's going to be my 2020 wrap up. It's just going to be everything. It's just I'm going to do a list of the top 10 things, if I can think of 10 things that I enjoyed from 2020. So that'll be everything. I'm not going to do like music and top 10 things I enjoyed for 2020. Top 10 worst things that happened for 2020, and all the predictions / conspiracies that I have for 2021. Until then, like I said, if you're watching this Christmas Eve, I hope you all have a fantastic Christmas. If you're watching it after Christmas or on Christmas, I hope you've all had an amazing Christmas. I'll see you next week for our New Year's special. Why not? I'm just going to put special everywhere and put it in capital letters. That'll get people clicking. Until the next time, I've been your host, Myles. This has been the Myles High Club podcast. Peace.